And we're back with another episode. And I am officially a Sean Strickland fan. Not just because he won.
I feel like it's less because he won and more what he says, right?
Yes. Before this, I kind of thought, I was like, you would always say you think he's funny. And I was like, I don't really get it. I don't really get it. But I don't know how many, I think the last week there was just over flooded with, his interviews and post-fight interviews and all different stuff. And seeing more like clips of him, I'm like, wait, I kind of like him.
Like what specifically do you like?
Well, the one thing I don't like, and I think it's just part of his like shtick, is the whole like fantasizing about like murdering people. I think that's just like his shtick. I don't know. I'm like,
yeah, that's.
It's just It's just really hard because I am a fighter and I'm doing the same thing. Like, I just think it's weird when like fighters talk about like going to war and all. Maybe that's their like how they view it, but I view it as a sport. Like, to me, I'm like, okay, you sound silly. Like, we're just playing a sport. Like, people, it's the same as like someone, you know what I mean? Someone like playing football saying like, we're going to war. It's like, it's not war. It's a sport. No one's dying. You know what I mean? Well, unless you're like some people, I guess, didn't that football player die? Or no, from the Bills? Or he didn't die. Almost.
That was from something else.
Yeah. But anyway, so like that's the only thing where he would say, and I was like, I can't, it's just a little too cringy for me. And, but listening to more of his stuff and him, he's like anti-feminist, which I love.
Well, I think when people say anti-feminist, they mean like anti-modern feminist, right? Because
Correct.
I think to be like the old school feminists are considered anti-feminists, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that he's anti-modern feminist. Like, he thinks that the women should stay home and take care of their kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he had like one clip where he was saying that he's like, I think we should go back and get the women back in the kitchen, whatever, talking about like how, and he made that clip and I reposted my story and a whole bunch of people were like, oh my God, why would you say that? That's so rude. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, you take him in the kitchen. So he's saying like where the woman can be at home, or we could live in a society where a man is making enough money to support the family so the woman doesn't have to work and she can raise the kids.
I think he's just doing an exaggerated version of something that pretty much most people would probably agree with. Like, it would be nice that to live in a place where you didn't rely on double income.
Right.
The kids weren't raised in daycare, and the wife, if she chose to stay home, she could. And I think that's kind of what he's saying.
But when people hear
he has like a gruff way of saying it, and it sounds like women belong barefoot in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's exactly what he's saying.
No. Because if you're saying like, oh, it would be nice for a family to be able to have the opportunity to raise their kids and see them more often, and that sounds nice, but I think just the way he says it, get women back in the kitchen, people automatically get defensive and like hate him. But, and also I really like on like Instagram and YouTube, I like Pearl things.
Mm-hmm.
And she did an interview with him, and right away I was like, oh, okay, she likes him, so I gotta like him a little bit.
Did you watch the entire interview?
I've saw like clips of it, but yeah.
Any
because her big thing is she always says that
she has like shirts that say women shouldn't vote.
Women
right?
should.
Again, she's an exaggerated version of.
People just see that and they're like, she's disgusting. Oh, what do you mean they shouldn't vote?
She's hilarious.
She's like kind of plays a spin off of it. Like, if we aren't created equally, like, okay, then women should have to go in the coal mines and work and have to go fight war and do all those things.
So what were some of the clips that you saw with those two?
They're just basically that, them kind of talking about basically like hating on feminists.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like for me, I'm like a woman in traditionally male dominant sport and stuff, but I'm like the least like anti-feminist.
Well, anti-modern feminist.
Yes. Well,
right?
yeah.
Because you're very much.
I'm just saying in today, what people say.
You're very much a strong, powerful woman.
Yes.
But
I support like women doing great things. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm a UFC fighter. You know what I
Right.
mean? I do the most like manly thing, and you know what I mean? And I make good money doing it, and I could support myself, and I think that's awesome. I'm doing what I want to do. I went to college, and I think that's amazing. But like, also maybe it's different for me. Like in the UFC, there's no different treatment for girls and guys, except for maybe girls. You could argue that it's a little bit easier because there's less women that fight, so it's less
You
competitive.
get an extra hotel room.
Yes, exactly. For fight week, all the female fighters get 2 hotel rooms because you shouldn't have to like sleep in the same hotel room as like your coaches, and all the males only get one hotel room for them
Right.
on all their coaches. So really, I think it's kind of unfair to be a male in the UFC.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, there's certainly, I don't see the divide that like men getting paid, the pay wage gap, all that stuff. I don't really see it. I'm sure it's a thing to some capacity, but I think like
Kyle,
if you're,
you gotta speak into the mic.
oh, I'm sorry. I think that if you're like if you're a teacher at the local high school, surely women get paid the same as men, right?
I mean,
Are they saying that they don't? I don't think that's necessarily what they're saying.
I think
I don't want to get into all that.
yeah, I think what they say is the average, but it's like more men work this certain jobs, and
But
it's
job
just
for job, surely it's the same. Like the 5th grade teachers
entry level positions for certain jobs. The
Right.
guys aren't getting paid more than the
Right,
girls.
right.
Yes. But anyway, so my whole point is I really like him for that. He also I saw a clip of him on the Nelk Boys where he was saying he has I just thought it was, because, he comes across as like this, like rough, like macho guy and stuff. And then they asked him if he had a girlfriend, and he said, yeah, I have a girlfriend. And he was saying how, being a guy, especially like, a famous guy, getting like going on Instagram and seeing all these hot Instagram models that all look like a perfect 10, and they're probably DMing him, and he's like, that is tempting and it looks like that would be fun. He's like, but he said he does better with one female, and he's like, it's more satisfying living for you and your partner rather than just kind of going out and just hooking up with a different girl every day, because at the end of the day that gets lonely. And I was like, oh wow, it's so cool that he's like such like a like a strong guy, and then he's willing to say that, where most guys that have some type of status are kind of like brag about how they can just get as many girls as they want, and that's kind of like the new norm. So I think it's cool. And I think he's like 32 maybe, so he's not like, it's not like he's 45, 50 is saying this. Like, he's still young. He could probably get any girl he wants just because he's a UFC champion, and that he goes on such a big platform and kind of says how that's not cool. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, definitely. But I think like has like old school traditional values, but he's an exaggerated version of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it comes off as like outrageous compared to everything nowadays, where like it's an exaggerated version of the other way.
Right.
So it's like even more polarizing. But yeah, I think he obviously captures headlines, and he fucking totally delivered this weekend. It wasn't even competitive.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even a competitive fight. I was very surprised. But if you watched, one round, you watched them all. He just stalked him down, just forward pressure the entire time. He had like amazing defense. He was checking leg kicks, and he was, his little head movement, and just the pressure, the forward pressure. It didn't have him like pressed against the cage, but he was close enough to the cage where Israel couldn't use his movement.
It's like boxing pressure.
Boxing pressure. Yeah, yeah. And we said that he was very good at that going into the fight, but he executed absolutely perfect. And I think something that played into his favor is that Israel's not typically like a one-punch knockout guy.
Right.
Where
it takes that fear out.
Right. Like when Sean Strickland had some hiccups, was against like Piera or who's the other guy? The other guy. Cannonier.
Oh yeah.
But those guys both are power guys. So I think they'd hit him really hard and it would maybe take away from some of his forward pressure. But it seemed to me that he just walked through everything Israel had and he completely dominated them.
That's what I knew he was like good at, but I didn't think he'd be able to do that to Izzy because I thought his like footwork and his like long range would have been, I thought his striking was just a different level, but that pressure, it's like that for everything. Even you see it a lot in MMA, like, like what could be with just the pressure, but the grappling pressure. And you see, Marab do it with the takedowns. You see a lot of people do that, but you don't see a lot of people do it with just striking. And in boxing, you see that all the time. Like someone that moves around, has good footwork. The way you beat them is just pressuring forward. But I think in MMA, we think about it pressuring with takedowns and pushing against the cage, clinching. But we haven't seen really a lot of people do that with just the boxing and striking. And I think because both of them weren't really going for takedowns, that because a lot of times it's hard to just keep doing that pressure if he was at the threat of him lowering his level, shooting, you know what I mean? That kind of changes it. But I think the style matchup, I didn't really think of it. I didn't think he was going to win, but the style matchup I think was great for him. And he just knew, oh, I'm going to go forward. And that was it. And then I think maybe Izzy kind of was like, wait, what do I do? And was just like kind of confused, like didn't expect that to happen. Because sometimes you can practice going against, in sparring, like, oh, put a lot of pressure on me. But if it's not that person's style, like you could think you're prepared for it. But when someone actually does it in a fight, it's a lot different. And it can definitely break you. It puts you on your heels and you kind of think like, wait, oh shit, it's not working. Now what do I do?
Yeah, he executed a game plan like just perfectly, but it wasn't like a game plan. It was like the same exact way he fights every single fight, but I think it just fit in like the perfect kryptonite for Izzy.
Yeah.
Because it was just not even remotely competitive. And I saw that Dana White had said that I think he wants to do an immediate rematch. He already said that. And that actually really surprised me.
Yeah, me too.
Because if you're a longtime champion like Israel was when he first lost to Pereira, they gave him the immediate rematch, of course, but then he has defended, or then he got his belt back, and his first time defending, he lost. And it wasn't close at all, and it wasn't like a flash knockout or an injury or something unusual. So I was kind of surprised, but I guess, he's probably, maybe the biggest star in the UFC in terms
I think
of
that's
his following.
that's the main factor of them getting a rematch. It's just because of his like star quality. You know what I mean? Like anytime he fights, like Drake is betting on him and doing all that stuff.
Right.
Which is funny because they always say like whenever Drake bets on someone, they lose.
Drake did bet on him.
Yeah, I saw today that American Top Team tweeted like at Champagne Poppy, can you please not bet on any of our fighters? For like, thank you.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
but it's interesting though. Like Aljo is not getting.
That's crazy. That
I feel that he should get his opportunity, even if they don't like him or whatever. He's proven himself enough, and he has enough. He's defended enough times that I think, regardless of how they feel about him or what kind of draw he is, I think that he deserves a rematch. But it doesn't look like he's getting one. Israel, I feel like I don't see why he's getting one, but it looks like he's going to get it. But who knows? Maybe he wants to take a little break. Strickland likes to fight often. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if he fought again before the end of the year at like UFC 300 or something.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on when Izzy wants to fight, because I think they're going to want to have that rematch just because how big of a draw he is. But it's just crazy to me that like this fight and then Aljo's fight was only like 3 weeks apart, and like Aljo, they're like, nah. Yeah. And then this one, they're like, of course. Like, it's just crazy how it's just crazy. You know what I mean? There's no rules for when they do it, or you know what I mean?
I personally don't like an immediate rematch in almost any situation. I've said this before. I think the person should always have to go back in and fight once, defend, or become a number one contender, and then get a shot right away. But I don't like the immediate rematch, because then it puts the division in a situation where if you win the rematch, then you got to do a rubber match.
Of course.
And then that's like really like 18 months for champions kind of fight twice a year.
Yeah.
So if they split the 2 first fights, the third fight will be 18 months most likely since the first fight.
Yeah.
And then that division's on ice. It's kind of like Grasso and Valentina this weekend. If Valentina wins, that division is on ice until, likely next spring.
And there's like a bunch of contenders ready. Like I understood when they did it for the guys flyweight. They kept doing Moreno and Figgy, but there wasn't at that time. There really wasn't like any other like contenders at that time. So it kind of, if there's nothing else going on, then it makes sense. Or if it's like, a bad decision or weird, certain times calls for it, but not every single time. Because like you said, then it holds it up. But I mean, for a while, it seems like if any of the champs were defending it multiple times, they kind of automatically got a rematch,
It's
no
pretty
matter
much
what.
Standard.
Yeah.
Aljo's the first one that is kind of breaking that trend.
Yeah. And I mean, you could argue like, oh, he got caught. It is a good shot. I mean,
of course.
You know what I mean? It happened so early, and I'm not saying I hate saying like, oh, you got caught, like, because
that's the goal.
Yeah,
right?
that's what you're trying to do, and you're like, no, I just knocked him out, but. You could say that,
Of course.
It wasn't like this fight where Strickland just obviously dominated him.
Like if Aljo had a rematch with O'Malley, set in 6 weeks from now, I still think Aljo would be the favorite going into it. I don't know why, but I kind of think he would be.
Yeah.
But maybe not, but I kind of think he would be.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't think he was going to lose at all. So
Either did I.
I don't know anything.
But yeah, so I mean, there's been a couple of big upsets in title fights now. This was, I think, Strickland beating Israel is definitely one of the biggest upsets ever. I made a list of the biggest upsets in, I said combat sports because I wanted to put a couple boxing in it.
Okay.
So, Zane, should we do a list?
Don't ask me for permission. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was kind of just off the top of my head, I was looking at this, then I kind of researched just how big of upsets these were. The number one biggest upsets, or should I go 5-1 or 1-5?
5-1.
5-1, yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, this is fun.
Number 5. This one I kind of just did just to throw a wrench into things, but I put a wrestling match. I put Larry Owens over Dan Gable. This was in Dan Gable's senior year. He was a 2-time defending national champion. He was on a 181 match win streak, undefeated in high school, undefeated in college.
That's a lot.
And he was down to his last match, and he was wrestling a sophomore from Washington State University, Larry Owens, and Dan Gable lost. It was in a 13-11 match. But at the time, he was thought to be unbeatable. And he lost to a sophomore in college after he was 181-0.
What did that guy go on to do? Good?
Nothing special. They did have a rematch in a few years later at the Olympic trials, and Dan Gable beat him. But yeah, so I have that as number 5.
Okay.
Number 4, I have Matt Serra beating GSP.
Ooh, that's a good
This
one.
was a massive upset, but I think it became a bigger upset as time went on because GSP, since then became, arguably the greatest fighter ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then that one loss that he had to Matt was so shocking. It was shocking at the time, but even looking back, we're like, well, Matt Serra beat him, but he's, one of the greatest ever. But it was kind of unusual that they even fought. It was because they had that second chance Ultimate Fighter. And Matt Serra won that.
Yeah.
And then the deal with that was if you won that show, then you got to fight. Right from winning tough, you got to fight the reigning UFC champion. So
it
was
wild.
like you win tough, and then you skip the whole bracket and fight the very top guy. And Matt Serra went out and totally fucked GSP up, knocked him out. So I have that as number 4.
That's crazy. Imagine if they did that now.
like you win tough and you fight.
You fight the champ.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild. But that's what it was. But that was because they had like guys who were in the UFC, then out of the UFC, then back in the. I think they did that this year though, right?
Well, they did. Half of them were vets and half of them were new guys.
Yeah, but pretty crazy. So number 3 for the biggest upsets, I have Israel and Strickland.
Okay.
Obvious reasons. Super heavy favorite, massive star in his home country.
Before the fight, you said that Izzy was like, what, 600?
I think right around there.
And when you said that, I was like, oh, I was surprised he wasn't more.
Yeah. Number 2, I have. It was funny because this was at UFC 193. Israel Strickland was UFC 293, so 100 fights away.
Pay-per-views.
Both happened 100 pay-per-views away. Both happened in Australia. I have Ronda and Holly. This was like monumental.
Yes.
It was when Ronda was like, since then Conor came, but nothing was bigger than Ronda at the time. She was the biggest star. They were saying that she could beat Floyd Mayweather in a fight. They were literally like, saying that.
She was definitely like always like minus 1,200 at least.
Yeah. She was literally, they were saying on lots of like talk shows that she could beat Floyd Mayweather. She would beat the guys. She was unbeatable, the biggest star, like nothing the UFC had ever seen before. And she was fighting Holly Holm, and she did get head kicked finished, as everyone remembers, seeing the highlight a million times, but she got fucked up the entire fight.
Yeah, like really
like
fucked
it looked
up.
like she never fought before. Holly's footwork, I remember I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. She made her look so bad with her like lateral movement, and she like dipped under that one punch.
Yes.
And Ronda fell over.
Like
I could like
into the
picture
cage.
it. Yeah,
You know what's funny with that fight is it's kind of like the, you know, everyone says like you can remember where you were.
Look at what I have in my notes.
What?
I says 9/11 type.
I was just going to say it's 9/11
Yes.
today. Like 9/11 people are always like, "Oh, I remember exactly where I was when it happened." For Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm, like I mean, I watch fights all the time. I don't remember that one. I can remember I was bartending, so I couldn't watch the fights, and like my phone, and I was like, that was one of those fights where I wasn't. You're like, okay, Ronda was just murdering everyone. You weren't even like excited about the fight. And then I remember my phone blowing up. Everyone's like, oh my God, like people out. I was working, and then everyone's like, oh, Holly Holm knocked her out. And it was like, haha, real funny. And yeah, so like I feel like that's the type of fight where you remember. It's when you say a monumental fight, you remember where you were when that fight happened, whether you saw it or not. Which is similar when Saturday night I was out with my girls' night, and so I didn't see the fights, and I kind of forgot about it. And then when I met up with someone that I know that trains, and they were like, "Oh, did you watch the fights?" I was like, "No, I was just out with my friends, so I didn't see him." And I didn't even like look on my phone to see who won. It was like one of those like, "Oh, well, I know Izzy's gonna win," so I didn't look. And he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I can't believe Sean won." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Like I thought he was just joking. And he's like, no, he did. I'm like, wait, no, he didn't. And he goes, yeah. I'm like, how? He's like, 5-round decision. I'm like, wait, are you serious? Like, that's how shocked I was. And it was the same thing with like Ronda Rousey and Holly. I'm like, you didn't even like expect. It was almost not even worth watching because you knew, well, you thought that Ronda was going to win.
You just wanted to see Ronda fuck someone up in like 20 seconds again. But yeah. I had that in my notes. I said, Ronda and Holly, that was like a 9/11 type moment where you remember exactly where you were. I remember I was in Fort Lauderdale. I was visiting my friend. He had this apartment, and we were watching the fights, and it was like insane. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was, definitely, I still think the biggest upset in the UFC, Strickland and beating Israel being the second.
Ooh,
number one, do you guys know what number one is?
Can I make a guess? Zane definitely doesn't know anything.
What?
Is it? Oh, well, you said you were putting boxing in there.
Boxing. I have all combat sports.
So
number one.
If it's boxing, I don't know.
What is it?
I don't know any UFC. I feel like this is going to be wrong.
Well, I think it's UFC. Boxing, so I definitely won't know. I'm not
boxing. I have number one. I think this is pretty, if you know combat sports, this is pretty low-hanging fruit.
Okay, wait. Is it one of the celebrity fights?
No.
Oh. Okay.
I have Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas.
Oh, see, I don't even know that.
You guys were obviously a lot younger, particularly Zane. But at the time, Mike Tyson was thought to be like, more than human. Like he was knocking everyone out in like seconds. Like they were disappointed to buy the pay-per-views because they would only last like, 30 seconds. But he was destroying everyone, the youngest heavyweight champion ever. But he fought Buster Douglas, and Mike Tyson was a 42-1 favorite going into the match.
That's crazy.
42-1. And he lost to Buster Douglas. So I remember I was in, I think like fourth or fifth grade, but I remember that happening. And I don't know that I watched it, but I remember like it being like
talked about.
Yeah. Because Mike Tyson, you could like Mike Tyson Punch Out, or his video games, and like everyone was obsessed with Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
he's thought to be unbeatable, and then he lost to this guy that like I didn't follow boxing, so I never heard of him. But it was like, how is that possible? How could someone beat him? But so I have that as the biggest upset ever. So Mike Tyson losing to Buster Douglas, that's the biggest upset in my opinion. Special mention happens to be the fight this weekend.
Oh,
Grasso and Valentina. That was a big upset at the time.
I feel like there's a couple like I don't know, the Rose and Johanna.
Yeah.
But I think I just remember the girl ones more because that's kind of what I follow. That was a pretty big one.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Then I don't know if it was necessarily an upset because I feel like people were like more just like, I wonder what's going to happen. They weren't sure either way. So it really wasn't an upset. Upset, you kind of think one person's definitely going to win. But the Conor and Jose Aldo, but that wasn't necessarily an upset. That was just like, who's going to win? Who's going to win? Oh my God, he starched him. So that's not really an upset.
You know what they consider a big upset?
What?
Because I was looking up just what other
Wouldn't
people
it be
thought.
when a favorite?
Yeah,
like
that Aldo and McGregor wasn't that's thought to be that big of an upset. But when Nate Diaz beat Conor,
that was going to be my second one.
But that was when I used to bet on fights, and I bet heavy on Nate Diaz as an underdog. Yeah, I was like, Nate Diaz is definitely beating Conor. Yeah, I thought for sure. I was like, he's going to choke him out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I remember betting on that fight. So I was like, I didn't even think of that as an upset at all. I thought that.
Were we in St. Martin for that fight?
That was the rematch.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't think that to be an upset. But Valentina and Grasso, it was an upset. What do you think happens this weekend when they fight?
I don't know. I kind of keep going back and forth. And okay. For like the last like 5 of Alexa Grasso's fights, I think I always underestimate her a little bit, and she always does better than I think. So with that being said, I think I'm giving her more stock in this one. So I'll probably be wrong, and then she'll lose. I don't know. I think I just go back and forth. I think there's something to be said where Alexa Grasso's confidence is going to go up even more because she did that, and then she won. And I think she was beating her before that. It wasn't just because Valentina likes to say, I think she said like Alexa Grasso was greasing, and that's why her jab, if she was greasing, that wouldn't affect her like 1-2s like we're landing. But I don't know. But I do think Valentina's like, her fight IQ is very good, and I think she will take her experience from the first fight and game plan and move forward. But so I have no answer. Basically, I don't fucking know.
I think that if Valentina is going to win, she's going to have to wrestle her the entire time and take her down and like hold her down and maybe get to that crucifix position she's so good at. But what I saw in their striking the first fight, and maybe she had an off night, but it looked like Grasso was just faster. She had more power. She looked better in striking.
Yeah, and Grasso, what she did, a big thing she did in that fight was she's usually a righty, and she came out southpaw, and I think maybe that kind of gave. I mean, I don't think that. I mean, Valentina has fought southpaws before, and she's fine. But I think that game plan was really good, and so I don't know if that's something that Valentina will kind of train for more, expecting her to come out southpaw. But like I said, I think that was just a good tactical plan for Grasso. So I wonder if maybe her coming out there threw off Valentina a little bit, but I think she's experienced enough where if someone comes out southpaw or not, you just figure it out. You know what I mean? You have enough experience at this point in the game where if I train for someone that is a southpaw and they come out righty, you just figure it out. You've done enough at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of I want Grasso to win. I don't know. I just think she's super cute. When she won the last time, it was so cute, and it would suck for that just to get taken away. But I don't know. I want Grasso to win, but I have no idea who's going to win. What do you think?
So if Grasso wins, you think then Valentina is just in the bracket?
Mm-hmm.
Just she'll fight?
I think what'll happen is, I don't know though. Valentina likes to take a lot of time off between fights. Hypothetically, if Grasso wins, they're either going to have to give her Blanchfield or Manon. Who will they give? I don't know. I was kind of saying whoever would have more of an impressive win, and I think they were both equally good. So it wasn't one had a super close decision and the other person had a 6 knockout,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know who they would pick. If Valentina wins, they do a rematch, then I think Manon and Blanchfield will fight for number 1 contender. But if not, I don't know. Who do you think they would pick if Grasso wins?
If Grasso wins,
it'll be between Blanchfield and Manon. I don't really know because both their fights were good.
Yeah.
I almost think that Blanchfield.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think Blanchfield maybe should get it just because she dominated Santos, who some people thought beat Valentina, where Manon beat Rose, who former champ at a different weight class though, broke her hand in the fight. It was kind of I didn't see that fight to be honest, but I think they said it was kind of close. It was more competitive than the other fight. I don't know. So, but I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like they could give them either one of them the fight, and you couldn't really disagree with it. What do you think?
Yeah. Same. I think whoever they think will sell better, probably.
Yeah, which I think it's probably about the same. Yeah.
Probably Faro would sell probably a little better because I think foreign fighters have their country supports them more.
Yeah, that's true.
She's probably a little bit more of
a sell. Here in the U.S., I think Blanchfield's a little bit more on it, but that's just the U.S. Worldwide. I always underestimate the foreign fighters and how much backing they have. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most likely, I would say that I'd be surprised if Grasso wins again. Not to say that in the rubber match that she won't, but it's hard to beat a really good person 2 times in a row.
Anyone, not just
anyone. That's why there's often the rubber matches.
Mm-hmm.
So
that sucks sucks because there's 2. If they do a rubber match and then there's 2 champs that haven't fought or 2 contenders that haven't fought, and it's now it sucks for them. Then they'll probably have to fight each other, which is another tough fight. And then one of them, whichever one loses, it's
then whoever loses, then you lose, and then you're gonna fight the loser of Valentina and Grasso, because then that would be for the new number 1 contender.
Yeah,
and that's just
who knows? There's so many things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how that plays out because it affects the entire division.
That's a division where if they do, like we said, they did the immediate rematch. If there's a rubber match, it sucks because it's holding up the division that has so many different fight opportunities to have.
Exactly.
Which is interesting because for so many years, the flyweight division was kind of stale, and now it's you're gonna hold it up. There's so many fights that could possibly happen, so it's kind of interesting to see. It's just interesting how weight classes change and what's more competitive or more popular at the time. Because forever it was, 135, and then 115 was kind of boring when Johanna was in. Now 115 is always changing. Now it seems like 125 is kind of taking over those 2, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
so it's just interesting.
Definitely interesting. we'll probably lose some listeners right now, but maybe Zane will talk to me about this. This weekend, we have the World Wrestling Championships. Freestyle Greco-Roman women's. I'm really kind of only into the freestyle, but you have any thoughts, Zane?
I don't know shit.
You don't know anything about it,
Nope.
so you don't care.
No, I do care. I just don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's always exciting. It's cool to see. I like it just because for nostalgic reasons. It's good to watch. Like like freestyle wrestling now, I think of as just such a specific skill set. I don't think of it in terms of like other types of grappling, because it's such a specific skill set. But they're so good at that specific skill. One thing that's up in the air is the Russia lineup. They are not necessarily sending their best guys. I don't know if it's for testing reasons, and they haven't been there last year because of the war with Ukraine. There was a sanction on the team, but so the United States should probably win again.
Wait, so how does that work? Because they were at war, like they weren't allowed to, or they were just
last year there was like a sanction against the Russian wrestling team or Russian athletic team. They couldn't go to events.
Was Ukraine allowed to?
That's a good question. I think so.
That's not fair.
Well, I think they say Russia's the bad guys.
Oh, well, who says that?
Them. Well, they invaded them.
Oh, okay. They're bullies.
I guess.
No bullies allowed.
But it brought me the thing that I wanted to talk about was it's such a like interesting thing. I know you want to face the best and you want to compete against the best, but like last year Russia wasn't there and the United States won like pretty much every single weight class. And this year they've already said that the best wrestler in the world is this guy Sajalayev. He's in Kyle Snyder's weight class, and Kyle Snyder's beaten him once, but he usually takes second to him. But again, Kyle Snyder is not going to have to face him. And it brought up an interesting point, or made me think of an interesting thing that Coach Tim Flynn used to always say. He used to always tell the guys at the beginning of the year, you don't have to beat everybody. Like, somebody's going to get sick, somebody's going to become ineligible, someone's going to get injured. But in this case, it's like someone's country's going to invade another country and get sanctioned by the world. Like there's always
the circumstances get more extreme when you get past college into world.
Yeah, there's always things that could happen. And if you just stay the course and focus on yourself and just focus on improving, no one looks at the world championships last year and be like, well, Kyle Snyder won, but Sajalayev wasn't there. No,
right.
It just says Kyle Snyder won another world title. It just I always never forgot that lesson, and it's so prevalent in athletics. Like DC was the champion because John Jones failed drug tests, but DC always did the right things, and he was there and ready to compete.
Yeah,
didn't fail drug tests and became a world champion. You could see examples of this like time and time again, and like even like on a global scale, like something might happen. And this team's going to be banned. So if you can't beat their guy, as long as you show up and you're ready to go and well-trained, if you can beat everybody else, you don't have to beat their guy.
Yeah.
I always think that's an interesting concept.
Well, I think that's a lot where it's not just physical ability. It's also a lot of like mental in any sport where you have to be, you can't be like, oh, this person always wins. So I'm not going to, you got to be there. They might not be there. And you can't be like, oh my, you can't even let that bother you or let that, you know, you think like, oh, well, they're not there. So I have to win, but I can't lose to this person because they're not supposed to beat me. Or just when things change automatically, like, you know, change quick and you get a new opponent, you have to be able to be ready and not get rattled with any of that stuff.
Yeah. You just have to be able to beat the person in front of you because like, look at Strickland and Pereira, like it was less than a round. If Pereira would have beat Israel the second time, Strickland would have never had that time. Now he's the world champion. But in your weight class, maybe you lost to Valentina, but maybe you match up better with Grasso.
Right.
You know, you matched up, you know, better with almost everyone. So somebody beat Valentina. Now she's out, then someone's going to work her way in. And nobody, like Grasso doesn't have that mystique about her. Like, Valentina did, where she was thought to be like unbeatable force, but like
well, right before.
Manon Farrow could knock off Grasso. No, maybe absolutely. Aaron
Yeah.
Blanchfield absolutely could.
Yeah.
You don't know who, but then you going against one of them, it's
Yeah.
you just have to beat the person in front of you, and things always just shake out. But that's what I was thinking about with the Wrestling World Championships.
Yeah. So they're not sure if they're going to send him at all? Or?
He's not going. They already said he's out for the World Championships. Sadulayev.
Why
He's
is
the
he
best
out,
wrestler in
though?
the world. I'm not sure.
I would assume it's injured, right?
I don't know if it's an injury or a drug test issue.
Well, wouldn't that be like?
I should have read the article. I just read the headline.
Do you think a lot of those guys going there are on steroids or no?
From Russia? Yes.
No, I don't think so.
I think so.
Or maybe, I don't know.
What?
Like the USADA test, I'm always naive with that. I always think that the USADA testing is hard to beat. And then
It is.
in an Olympic
In
sport.
this country?
No. In the Olympic sport, they don't just have USADA, they have WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency. USADA is United States Anti-Doping Agency, and they send people at the different countries. But I think at the world level, they eventually get caught. But yeah, of course. I mean, Russia has notoriously been on steroids, but I don't know. I'm kind of naive with that stuff. Until they get caught, I always say, well, maybe not. Like some of our friends think like every single person in the UFC, oh, they're all on steroids. And maybe, but I know lots of UFC fighters, and they don't know how would you do it? How would you cheat? They don't know
I
how
always
to
say
do
I'm
it.
like either I'm really
Or you're
dumb.
just super naive. You
Yeah.
and all the people we know are like naive. You don't know how to.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people are on steroids. Like when people are like training in like Thailand and stuff, I'm like, how are they being tested?
Yeah.
But
Well, the thing is, this is my thing. In the US, I think fighters in other countries could get away with it, because all it is just someone that comes.
right.
I have the same person coming to my house, and it's really just, is that person like trustworthy?
Yeah.
Now in like another country like Brazil or wherever, I'm just using that as an example. I don't know specifically Brazil, where fighters are like huge celebrities, and then maybe it's different for that. Maybe the people that go and test them are fans of them and will work with them because they just hire third party people to go test them that live in that area. So like if you're in Thailand and you have someone that lives in Thailand, maybe you can pay them $100 and then they don't care what pee you use.
Right.
I haven't heard that, but that's in theory. I mean, you hear people say all the time, that's why, all these fighters go to Thailand, to Tiger Muay Thai. They do their camps there. It's like, why are you going there and you just bring your sparring partners there?
Right.
That's kind of like the rumor. Now, is that true? I don't know. From the way I do testing, there's no way to get around it. I've heard also that people they say they microdose on steroids. So you do it in the morning and then it's out of your system, or you do it at night and it's out of your system in a couple of hours, something like that. So that way you could avoid it. I don't know. I don't really understand. But to me, you have to have someone that scientist or someone that knows a lot about testing. And I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I think maybe I'm naive with that, but I'm always like, I don't know. They come to our house at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
and they watch you pee.
Yeah. Yeah. Although the only time I got away with it was when I actually
got away with it.
Well, when I got away with getting the test, this is how you could get away with it, I think. So the one time I actually had COVID and they came to the door and I was like, hey, just so you know, I don't know if you guys care, but I was like, I have COVID. And they're like,
but you always had COVID.
Yeah, I know. COVID queen. But they were like, no, they're like, no, it's fine. We'll go, whatever. And they just left. And I was like, oh, well, if you guys want to get out of a drug test, just tell them you have COVID and they'll just run away. And then they didn't test me for a couple weeks. So I was like,
while you were recovering.
Yeah. I mean, they could have came back 3 weeks later. And I wonder if it was I have COVID.
They should have just had a mask on. That would have been safe.
Yeah, that's true. I actually think they did. They still ran away. So that's how I think you would get away with it. Just say you have COVID. That's kind of how you get away with everything.
COVID's getting hot again.
Is it though?
It's starting to.
Is it?
New strain, bro.
New strain. Did you get your booster? You probably did.
He probably did.
What do we got? Do we got any questions? Did you get any questions or anything?
Oh, I have one that asked if it was specifically for you. They asked if you're in any fantasy football leagues.
No, I'm not.
Do you even know what that means?
I mean, I know what it means. I don't know how it really works. I don't know like how the points work, but you like draft a team and then you have to decide like who to put in. You're like a general manager of like a online football team, and you have to put in your players and stuff like that based on this. I don't know.
Yeah, that's as far
that's
as
as
I
much
know.
as I know. I know a lot of people are really, really into it.
Yeah.
Is there money involved?
Yeah, I think
If
you
you
pay
win,
in,
you-
but like you pay in and then
That
like I
makes it a
think
little
first,
better.
second, third. My friend's husband, she said he's in one where it's like 5,000 to enter, and like the winner gets like 75 grand.
Oh, that's cool.
I was like, what? That is crazy. And then I think like usually like second place, third place.
Get your money back.
If
third
anyone
place.
that kind of knows about this is listening to this, they're probably like these retards.
No,
I'm
I
like,
don't know
I'm
anything
explaining
about it.
to you fantasy football, and I really have no idea. I'm like, I am so lucky that you don't like play fantasy football and that you don't play video games. I love it so much.
I just don't have time for it. I don't know. And I'm just not interested. I guess you could say I have time. I watch all the fights.
Yeah.
But I guess that's only one day where fantasy football you have to probably like be on your phone and like
yeah.
it. But no, I
But it
don't
would be
know
hard
enough
to do
about
fights
it.
and football. That's like, you know, it was funny when we were at the beach on Labor Day, and because you and me really don't know anything about like real sports. You know a little bit. You're not too bad.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
But I say real sports, like UFC, but you know what I mean, like the main ones. And so we're on at Long Beach Island. We're sitting on the beach, and they have like the planes that go by with like the advertisement banners that drag behind the airplanes on the beach. And you and me always talk about like when we're in South Jersey, and I'm from Pennsylvania, how like diehard they are for the Eagles, and I love that. Like I'm like, it's so cool. Like if you drive in any town in Pennsylvania, like even not in football season, every single person, every woman, every like kid has Eagles, a hat, shirt all year round. And so whatever. So the sign goes by and it says "Go Birds," and I was like, and I looked at you. I was like, "Oh, go!" I was like, "Go Birds!" And Gregor looks at it and he's like, "Birds." So he's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Go Birds!" Like Eagles. And he's like, "What? What is that?"
Yeah, he definitely doesn't.
And he never even like I said, I mean, we live in New York. It's right there. And I was like, you know, the Eagles. He's like, what's that? He's like, I'm like, the sports team. He's
I
like
that.
He's like, I have no idea what that is. I'm like, Philadelphia Eagles. He goes, and he didn't know that was football. I was like, wow, he knows way less than me.
Yeah, I like that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not in any fantasy leagues. I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
Maybe you didn't get invited to any?
I didn't.
That's sad.
No, I don't care.
Yeah. No, we're not big Sunday football people. I mean, during the playoffs, we'll watch a game and then we kind of like it. We're like, wow, this is cool.
Watch one game a year. But no,
yeah. We watch when the Bills or the Eagles are like the last game of the playoffs before they like lose. Pretty much. That's when we watch it. And we like it. It's just, I don't know. We don't really have time for it.
That's a random question. I don't know why people would think that I would be into that.
I think they probably knew you weren't.
Like I'd rather watch like a cooking competition any day. Like I love like cooking shows. What was that show on Netflix that we just watched?
Oh, Pressure Cooker.
Pressure Cooker. That show's
I feel like no one talks about that. It was basically, I never watched Big Brother, but this is what people compared it to online. It was like Big Brother and
I didn't like the ending, but I like that show.
Big Brother and a cooking show together.
Yeah.
That was amazing. They were like cutthroat with having to like vote people off and making allies and teams. What?
I wanted to talk about, I didn't mean to cut you off,
No.
but I wanted to talk about on the UFC card this weekend, there's two fighters that they got kind of in a little bit of a jam because they both said
I don't even know how to.
homophobic slur.
That's good.
The F word. The F, not fuck, but the other F word that you're not
bundle
allowed
of
to
sticks.
say. Yeah. So,
Do you remember that's what they always used to say
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
were little? A bundle of
so
sticks.
they were really in some hot water about that. I've seen a lot of like news stories how they said this and that. I think that there has to come a time where that word doesn't mean a derogatory slur towards a homosexual.
Yeah.
Just like if you say, if a car drives up and it's a brand new Ferrari and I say, oh, that's a sick car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying that the car has an illness.
Right.
The word sick in that context has changed from the traditional usage of the word as an illness to really cool.
Yes.
Or
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. So these words change, right? So now if you call oh, you're being a F word, that really just means you're being like weak.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with
it doesn't mean
he's not calling anyone a homosexual.
Yeah.
It means nothing. It has nothing to do with that. I think that has to come back.
Yeah.
Because that word was so descriptive and no one ever thought of it as a homosexual.
Yeah. That's kind of like, I mean, I've had like friends, like I say retarded all the time.
Same thing.
And I've had friends like, oh my God, you can't say that. I'm like, why? I'm not talking about someone. I'm saying that's stupid. Like, I'm not gonna, no, I don't care. Like, people can disagree with me and that's fine. And they don't have to say it. But I know that I don't mean it that way. And I don't have anything against people that have mental illnesses. No. Like,
or gay people,
yes.
Or anyone. But that word, you have to think of it like the Ferrari. The Ferrari's sick. It doesn't have a cold. It's just really cool. That person's acting like they're just acting weak.
Yeah.
Shot. You don't
like a little girl or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought I saw like an interview after they asked Dana White about it.
He didn't care, right?
Of course not. And this is why I love fighting for the UFC, because you can say whatever you want, whether that doesn't mean he agrees with it or not. He's like, Dana even said, he's like, listen, he apologized. One of the guys apologized right after on his own. He's like, they didn't tell him he has to apologize. He goes, people make mistakes. They're in the moment. Like, you just,
but that's not a mistake. That's only a mistake because we highlight that word. Mm-hmm. It's not a mistake.
Yeah.
If he said, all you sissies in the fan, like sissy is the same type of word, yes. But that word is okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's why I just like
all you wimps in the stand.
Yeah, you know? I love
or pussies, the same type of thing.
Yeah, that's why I just love like Dana White's responses are so perfect. Like he's like, what? I mean, it's like people could say what they want. And he's like, whether that doesn't mean he agrees with it or not, and that's why like. I'm so like, not me personally, because I don't even say anything. I don't even talk. No one knows what I say, but it's so cool that like you could say whatever you want and like you're not controlled. I mean, to fight in the UFC, like it's the only sport like during COVID that kept going. The only sport and like huge company that didn't make you get vaccines. They like the only sport that doesn't even talk about like the difference between guys and girls. It's just like this, if you're good, that's all they want. You win, you get paid more. You know what I mean? And it's just
that's why
there's no drama in it, and that's why it's funny because you think that everything else is getting so controlling and stuff and lose interest every year, but UFC just keeps growing every year, and it's like the only sport or thing in entertainment that doesn't have any control of like what people say.
Yeah, that's why it's the best.
Nothing
compares. And I think also because it's a true global sport.
Yes.
It's literally every single country. I mean,
right.
Countries all over the world, not every single country, but countries all over the world, like dozens of countries are represented in the sport. And other countries don't have the same woke ideologies that they try to do in like, American basketball or football and that stuff. Like the woke ideologies don't exist in Dagestan.
Yeah, they're allowed to say what they that's not wrong to say certain things. Whether you like it or not, it's not. It's your opinion.
People of Dagestan wrong? Of course they're not. That's just their culture. Our culture is a weak, woke,
Everyone be fair and
nonsense culture. But in other countries, they're completely against that. So you can't say that they're wrong and we're right. And I think because the UFC is such a global sport, they can't really go ridiculous woke like the other silly sports.
Right.
But yeah, so that was a kind of a funny talking point, but I like that Dana White didn't care.
That was funny though when they said it, and DC was like, "Okay," he like tried to take the phone, whatever, or the microphone. Yeah, I was like, "Poor DC, you got put on the spot there." It's gonna be like uncomfortable for him, but that was super
great.
funny.
Anything else?
No, that's good here.
All right, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and follow our IG page, Burning the Boats. Is that it? Burning the Boats. Subscribe on YouTube. Next week we'll try to have a guest on.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.